Hey everybody! Woo! I just really wanted to do that. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about boundaries and what they can do for our life. What really are boundaries? What are healthy boundaries that can protect us, protect our hearts, protect our minds, keep the good in and the bad out. These are all things that we desperately want, whether we know it or not. And boundaries involve relationships. So I'm going to kind of start with like a story. Actually, let me get started before I forget. But this was the very first book that forever changed my life. Boundaries. When to say yes, how to say no, to take control of your life. It is by Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. If you haven't heard about it, or if you have, you need to get this. This is going to be the beginning of a whole new life for you. But let me fair warn you, once you read it, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Oh my God, how they know? Like, they're literally reading my mind. Oh my gosh, all these people understand me so well. It's one thing to have the head knowledge, but it's like a whole nother thing to like apply boundaries to your life. Not easy, but so worth it. So if you don't have it, get it. Absolute need for everybody. I don't know anybody who has perfect boundaries, and if they say they do, I don't believe them. Anyhow, okay, so I'm gonna start with this story. In the book, it gives this example of these parents who came into a therapy session with, I think it was Henry Cloud, and they wanted to get help for their 25-year-old son, and they started to explain all of his issues and all of his problems and how they've always been there to help their son and give him whatever he needs, and whenever he, something, he needed something, whatever, they gave it to him financially. In school, got him in new schools when he failed out of the first one, and so on, a free place to live. And they basically wanted the therapist to help their son with their son's problems. And the therapist said, after hearing all that, I don't think your son has any problems. And they looked at him like, what? And he said, I think you do. And at first they didn't quite understand, but as he started to explain to them, it's kind of like, and I mean, this can be applied to all relationships, so bear with me and listen. But he said, every time you turn on the sprinklers in your yard, if they were facing the neighbor's yard and they were watering the neighbor's yard instead of your own, eventually your grass is going to die. Your neighbor's going to come out and be like, oh, everything's great. I don't need to do anything because like my lawn just keeps getting watered. And so what he was then explaining to them is, if you fix the sprinkler system and start watering your own yard, soon your neighbor's going to end up with dead grass and dirt and probably not like the problem that they have, and then they'll have to fix it. But if you keep doing everything for everybody and enabling their behavior and enabling the way that they treat you, then people are going to treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. And the only person that has the power to allow that is you. So we started off with that. And, so like the coolest thing about when I first started learning about boundaries, it was so easy for me to set them with people that were like acquaintances or new people I met, no problem whatsoever. But as soon as I started to try to practice what I had learned with long-standing relationships, whether it be family or friends, it can get a little bit rough because they didn't sign up for this new dynamic of relationship. But, at the end of the day, only you can establish what you want for yourself and what you don't, and what you value and what you don't. what you're okay with and what you're not. And you can't just expect other people to respect those parts of you that you basically give them no consequences if they treat you otherwise. So boundaries is a lot about learning who we are. They define us, they protect us, they give other people a invisible message of who we are, what we will allow and what we won't allow in our lives. You know, on a property, there is going to be a visible boundary. A fence is going to be set up, and you're going to see that's obviously the boundary of somebody's yard and their house and what they own. Well, when we create, excuse me, I need to drink of water. But when we create these boundaries for ourselves, starting with ourselves, and we really get to know ourselves, and we start to be aware of these areas in our life that, you know, in certain relationships where even at work with bosses, coworkers, and we start to feel uncomfortable, or we feel like we're walking on eggshells, or we feel like we need to perform a certain way or say certain things in order to appease others, keep the peace. If we're feeling fear or we're doing things out of guilt, these are all signs, red flags, that there are dynamics in that relationship that are unhealthy and that boundaries do need to be established. For me, one of the other books, I think I read it after that first book, but it's called Safe People. It's a blue book. It's somewhere, or I might have let somebody borrow it. I'm not too sure. But look it up. It's on Amazon, Safe People. If you want to know the author, let me know in the comments and I'll find that for you. But it was crazy. Like, I read that book and I'm just like, what have I been doing? Like, again, I was in my early 30s. Like, I had just been letting in all these people in my life, like not even like understanding like what safe and unsafe people were. And how to make sure that I don't allow unsafe people to be in my circle, my life. People who know me now, they know I always say like I live in my own little bubble, and I truly do feel like my boundaries have created this beautiful bubble that I live in. And I just, you know, am I constantly 100% perfect and consistent in my boundaries? No, but I genuinely have grown so much, and it has done such wonders for my life, for my relationships, even the relationships that I felt after reading and understanding boundaries I needed to establish more boundaries with. Like, I feel like even through the rough patches that we went through, while boundaries were being established, I feel like our relationships are even stronger now, and that we have more value and respect for each other, because boundaries, it basically is an understanding of where you end and where someone else begins. And so what that does is that allows you to live your true self. You have more freedom in choices. You have freedom to live the life that you want to live. You don't allow others to control you. You know where you draw the line. So when you know where you draw the line, other people will learn where you draw the line. And what was I going to tell you guys? Great, I had a little notepad, but I lost it. Oh well. But yeah, so boundaries does involve self-love, and it increases your self-love, it increases your self-respect, and it also teaches others to love you and respect you and value you. And you teach them that if they don't, then there will be no relationship. A dear friend of mine, we once discussed that, like, you know, where some people you can hold close in your heart, and you know that they're gonna love you and value you and respect you consistently, not perfectly. And so you can hold them close in your heart because they're safe, right? And it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad people. They just haven't done enough self-work, you know, on themselves in order to be granted that type of relationship where people can hold them close in their heart and they can trust that they're not gonna constantly hurt them, you know, emotionally, mentally, verbally. But then there's people that you kind of, now if we're looking at a house, like you kind of put on the other side of your picket fence and you still love them, but like from a distance. And then there's people you kind of got to put like a tin like foot cement block wall up for, and you kind of got to like keep them way out, you know, just because they're not healthy themselves. And so what you do when you establish and create these boundaries, and they can be flexible, because if you allow your boundaries to be flexible, you're not going to be consistent. People are going to know that maybe this time she says no, but next time she'll probably say yes, or, you know, this time she's not okay with that, but maybe next time she will be, because she switches. She's not consistent with her boundaries. So it's important to be consistent. And when you establish those boundaries with others, let's say you have certain friends or family members or coworkers in your life that you're like, okay, you know what? Yeah, there are these relationships that I do sense the red flags, you know, where I need to maybe establish some boundaries. I think that one of the cool things is that when we understand that boundaries are not even just about us, like boundaries are actually it's a tough way of loving others, you know, because love does involve tough love. So boundaries are actually a way where we can offer an opportunity for others to look in the mirror and say, you know, maybe I do need to change. Maybe I need to look at myself, and maybe I need to actually start to learn how to respect other people's boundaries, or make these changes in myself so that other people let me closer into their hearts, right? And their lives. And so really it's an opportunity for others to change for the better. But again, that's their choice. You cannot do that for them. You cannot change others, by the way. They have to want to change themselves. You can give them opportunities by creating boundaries and being honest with your yeses and your nos, and not feeling pressured out of fear or guilt or the desire to be accepted, to do things. Like, live your true self, figure out, like, and this is where identity is everything when it comes to boundaries. And that is actually my next video next week. We're going to talk about the roots of our identity, you know, how we establish a healthy identity, why we establish the identity that we have, and how we can establish a better identity, understanding how we do that. But when you establish this identity of who you are, and you create boundaries to protect that person, life just gets so much better. You start to realize that, like, those unhealthy, those unsafe people that you felt like were like consistently coming into your life, slowly they're like not coming in anymore, because those invisible boundaries are very evident in the way that you love, respect, and protect yourself. And other people start to see that. And again, we go back to people treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. So let me encourage you to really look into boundaries. There's all sorts of information on boundaries. I pray that you would have the courage to not just know, but actually practice boundaries, and valuing and loving and respecting yourself, and, you know, being an example to others to create boundaries as well. Because once you create that identity of who you are and how much you love and respect yourself and value yourself, then others who truly do love you and who love you unconditionally, they might feel a little uneasy at first, because you're kind of in a way knowingly or unknowingly making them change to appreciate you as an individual. And so that might be a little bit rough for a while. It can actually get pretty, there can be some confrontation, so expect that. But in the end, if people truly love you, if they truly love you unconditionally for who you are, they're going to love you after you create your boundaries. So let me just encourage you that the fear of thinking that people are going to abandon you or not be there for you anymore because you're establishing boundaries, I think that I can be pretty confident in saying that if people don't stick around and don't still love you and respect your boundaries after you have established them, that's a pretty sure sign that they didn't ever really truly value and love you. And the people who do, you'll see they will stick around, and there will be different changes and shifts and the dynamics of the relationship, but it will always be for the better. So let me challenge you today to maybe even just pick one relationship, because I know we probably all have that one relationship that rubs us the wrong way, and just practice establishing boundaries. By the book, they have it on Amazon. If you have any questions or want any other recommendations on books, I literally have like 15-20 of them on boundaries that I can recommend to you. Have any questions or anything else that you want to comment, please comment below. Give this video a thumbs up. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next week as we talk about establishing a healthy identity and how we can do that. Have a great day. Bye. Sorry, I couldn't find my glasses.